At my brother's wedding, I was handed a paper badge that read, "Limited Access Guest." My mom whispered, "That means no plate." I looked over, walked to the gift table, retrieved my envelope with a $7,500 fund check, and said, "I think you won't need this anymore." Then I left. My brother ran after me, and my parents shouted, "Come back." But I didn't. It was offensive. No other word for it. My envelope was lying there on the gift table, plain white, a little bent at the corner from when I placed it down earlier, holding a $7,500 check I'd earned the hard way. It had taken me months of saving, extra hours, skipped vacations, saying no to things I wanted, just so I could do something meaningful for my brother. And unfortunately for them, I was about to take it back. I had no idea anything was wrong until I arrived at the reception venue. The church ceremony had been fine. Quick, pretty, the kind of thing that's all blur and applause. My brother had barely spoken to me that morning, but I chalked it up to nerves. I didn't expect red carpet treatment. I'm not that girl, but I assumed I was part of the Day family after all. When I reached the reception check-in, I was behind a couple who were handed shiny envelope-style badges, gold-trimmed, with their names and table numbers printed in calligraphy. Then it was my turn. The woman behind the table didn't even look up. She handed me a paper badge. I stared at it, white, flimsy, printed with thick black text that read, "Limited Access Guest." I paused. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Then my mom appeared like she'd been waiting nearby, just for this moment. She leaned in and whispered like we were sharing a joke. "That means no plate." I waited for her to smile, to wink, to make it a joke, but she just walked off before I could even ask anything. I stood there holding the badge, suddenly aware of how quiet everything got in my head, like I was underwater. I walked into the hall anyway, telling myself maybe there had been a mix-up. But as soon as I saw the tables, the seating chart, the servers placing dishes, it hit me. My name wasn't listed anywhere. I checked the family tables. Nothing, not even at the far end. No chair, no plate, not even a name card. I wasn't a guest. I was a placeholder, a loose, and they didn't bother to cut. I stood near the wall, watching everyone settle in. My brother raised a toast. My parents clapped. His fiancée leaned in and kissed his cheek, while people snapped photos. I waited for someone to notice me, for someone to walk over and say it was a misunderstanding. No one did. They saw me. They just didn't care. So I made my way out of the main hall and back to the entrance where the gift table stood. It was crowded earlier, but now it was quiet. Just a few scattered envelopes and gift bags. I spotted mine immediately. It was the only one that wasn't sealed with a sticker or ribbon, just folded closed. I picked it up, opened it, took out the check, and held it for a second. Then I said, not loudly but clear enough, "I think you won't need this anymore." I turned and walked toward the exit. I didn't make it 10 steps before I heard chairs scraping, someone calling out my name, then my brother's voice, louder, angrier, and then my parents. They were all shouting now, "Come back! Come back!" I didn't. I walked calmly to my car, started the engine, and drove off without a second glance. They could toast and dance all they wanted, but now the honeymoon they'd been so desperate to afford just got a little less golden. They didn't want me there. Fine, but they wouldn't get to use me either. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was angry, but because everything that happened kept running through my head in perfect detail, over and over, like it was burned into the inside of my eyelids. I couldn't stop thinking about that envelope sitting on the gift table, how proud I was when I dropped it off. I thought I was doing something good, something meaningful. I thought I was part of something. Instead, I was the girl with the paper badge. The girl who didn't get a seat. The girl whose own family decided she didn't quite belong. That wasn't some oversight. That wasn't a mistake. That was deliberate. By morning, the text started. First, my mom, then my dad, then my brother. Can we talk? Please don't make this a thing. Let's not ruin the weekend. No one said they were sorry. No one admitted anything. It was all deflection and sugar, as if my reaction was the problem, not their treatment. My mom actually wrote, "We assumed you'd be okay with standing, since you always say you don't care about fancy stuff." Anyway, like I was supposed to be grateful for the privilege of being excluded with a smile. Around noon, my dad called. I ignored it. He called again, then sent a text. "Come over. We want to talk. Your brother's here, too." I didn't answer right away. I took a shower, made breakfast, cleaned the kitchen. I didn't owe them urgency, and I didn't owe them the benefit of the doubt either. But still, part of me wanted to go, not to fix anything, just to watch them squirm a little. They needed that check. I knew that. I knew how close to the edge they were financially. I'd heard my brother complain about the venue cost and how stretched they were trying to book a honeymoon in the same month. So I went not out of forgiveness, out of curiosity. When I pulled into the driveway, my brother's car was already there. So was my dad's. I walked in without knocking, and all three of them were in the living room. My mom tried to look casual, smiling like I was back from a long vacation. My dad nodded like this was going to be a reasonable conversation. My brother stood and half raised a hand like he wasn't sure if he was supposed to hug me or shake hands. I sat down and didn't say anything. I waited. My dad spoke first. He said it was really unfortunate how things went yesterday. Not that they made it unfortunate, just that it happened to be unfortunate. My mom followed with some lines about miscommunication and logistics. She used the word oversight a few times, as if I just slipped through the cracks, as if my absence at any table and my exclusion from dinner had been a spreadsheet error. My brother didn't say much. When he did, it was vague. I didn't know that's how it would be. I thought you'd understand, like I was supposed to be some enlightened monk who would just float above the humiliation. I listened to it all, nodding occasionally, and when they finished doing damage control, I looked at them and said one thing. I might change my mind. That was it. No promises, just that word, might. The shift in the room was instant. My mom sat up straighter, eyes wide, like I'd just thrown her a life preserver. My dad gave this sharp little exhale, like relief was already washing over him. Even my brother glanced up for the first time and looked directly at me. I could feel their hope thick in the air, like they thought they'd won me back. My mom started talking fast about how generous that would be, how that money would go directly to the honeymoon, how she didn't want this little thing to hang over us forever. My dad chimed in about how families have rough moments, but they get through them. My brother didn't say thank you, not even then. I just smiled a little, stood up, and said I needed time to think. I walked out, leaving them with that word might buzzing in their ears, like a secret promise, and I meant it exactly the way it sounded. Not a no, not a yes, just a long pause. Let them sit with that. Let them stew in it, because for the first time in a long time, they wanted something from me, and I was going to let them feel what it's like to hope someone else gives you what you desperately need, and doesn't. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my mom. Her voice was soft, careful, like she was speaking to someone in the middle of a breakdown. She said she'd been thinking all night that maybe things had been handled a little too rigidly at the wedding, that perhaps they could have communicated things better. She didn't say the words, I was waiting for. No, we messed up. No, I'm sorry. Nothing like that. Just an attempt to paint the whole thing as a misunderstanding, something minor, that maybe I'd blown out of proportion. Then came the kicker. They were delaying the honeymoon, not canceling, just pushing it a little. She said it like it was a weather delay, like their plans had hit some mild turbulence that would sort itself out. What she didn't say was the part one already knew. Without my check, they were screwed. Later that afternoon, my dad called. He always plays it differently, less emotional, more calculated. He said he was proud of the woman I'd become, successful, stable, dependable. He said not everyone in the family could say the same, and that I should be proud of myself for having something to offer. Then he got to the point. We trust your judgment. He said, I know you'll make the right call. They were laying it on thick now. The fake compliments, the polished concern, the subtle reminder that I was the reliable one, the mature one, the one they needed. That was the moment I remembered the car. 6 months earlier, I'd loaned them my second vehicle when theirs broke down. It was supposed to be for a week or two. I never got it back. My dad kept saying they were waiting for a part. Then they were waiting for a mechanic. Then the mechanic didn't show up. And so on. I stopped asking. It became another thing I'd done for the family, but the car was still in my name, still on my insurance. I opened the account and checked. Yep, still registered to me. I scheduled a tow for Friday morning. No warning, no courtesy heads up. Just gave the company the address and waited for the confirmation. Friday at 9:12 a.m., my phone rang. My mom. I didn't answer. Then again, immediately, then a third time. Finally, I picked up. There's someone outside. They're towing the car. Did you do this? I said, yes. Silence. Why? She asked. I told her I was changing insurance companies, which wasn't a lie. She said they needed the car, that they had plans, that it was inconvenient. I could hear my dad's voice in the background, already yelling at someone outside. I said, then maybe you should borrow one, rent, or figure something out. That's what I'd have to do, right? She said, this is about the wedding, isn't it? I said, no, this is about patterns. And I hung up. That evening, I got the first direct message from my brother. Since the wedding, can we talk? Just us. 5 words. No punctuation. I stared at it for a while. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even surprise. He knew why I wasn't responding. He'd stood there and let it happen. He'd been part of it. I waited 6 hours before I answered. Soon. Not today. Not tonight. He could wait. Let them all wait. Let them live with the same silence they once gave me. Let them stay up wondering what I'll decide. And when I'll decide it, for once, I was the one pulling the strings. I didn't respond to my brother again that week. I wanted to see how long it would take before he cracked. He didn't call, just sent one more message the next day. Please just talk to me. I didn't want it to go that way. I left it on read. Meanwhile, the silence from my parents was almost louder. No follow-ups, no apologies, no explanations, which told me 2 things. First, they were panicking. And second, they were trying to figure out how to save face. If I decided to burn the whole bridge, I started to think that maybe they didn't believe I'd go through with it, that maybe they still saw me as the same girl who showed up to every family gathering, paid for dinner more often than not, stayed quiet when they took advantage, because that's just how family is. But I was done being predictable. 3 days after the car was towed, I dropped by unannounced. I parked across the street and walked in through the front door. My dad was in the living room watching the news. He flinched when he saw me. My mom walked out of the kitchen like she'd been rehearsing something. I didn't know you were coming, she said. I know. I sat down at the table. They didn't offer coffee, which was a first. My dad muted the TV and leaned forward like he was gearing up for a pitch. He said they'd talked to Ryan, my brother, and that he was really upset about everything, that he never intended for me to feel excluded, that the wedding was stressful and chaotic and full of decisions that had to be made quickly. Then my mom added that they'd been looking at alternative honeymoon options. Something smaller, she said, more local. I asked if they'd booked anything yet. They said no, still figuring it out. I nodded. Then I said this: I might be able to help, but I was thinking maybe I'd put it in the form of a loan. Nothing too formal, just something with terms. The room froze. What kind of terms? My dad asked. Monthly repayments with interest. I said, nothing crazy, but it's a lot of money. I think it's fair. They both looked like I'd just spoken in another language. My mom said, but it was a gift, wasn't it? It was going to be. I said, then you downgraded me to a limited access guest and cut me out of your wedding, like I was some distant cousin. You barely knew. My dad got quiet. My mom looked like she might start crying, and I added, I'd like the family group chat shut down. I'm not reading another message from Anton about pool party plans, unless I'm actually treated like part of this family. She started saying something, but I stood up, or I said, you can borrow the money elsewhere. Figure it out. If Ryan really needs it, maybe he can pick up a second job, or you two can sell something. I walked out before they could say anything else. I didn't get halfway down the driveway before Ryan pulled in. He jumped out of the car like he'd been rushing home. Wait, Mel, wait. I stopped. He looked tired, not fake tired, actually worn out, and in a weird way, it threw me. I hadn't seen him that way before. I know they screwed up, he said. I know I did too, but you've made your point, okay? Just don't keep doing this. I didn't say anything. I asked Dad for help. I didn't know they were going to treat you like that. I swear I found out afterward. I asked him if he had anything to say at the reception when he saw me standing off to the side. When I walked out with the envelope, he didn't answer. I meant the gift. I said, every dollar of it. He nodded. Then I got in my car and drove off. That night, I saw something I didn't expect. A message from Ryan's fiancée. Hey, I don't know everything that happened, but I just want you to know I'm really sorry. I saw what they did, and you didn't deserve it. That stopped me for a minute. I read it twice. Then I smiled. At least one person in that house had a working moral compass. After that message from Ryan's fiancée, I did something I hadn't done all week. I responded. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. I really do. She replied almost instantly. I just wish you'd stayed. I think everything would have played out differently if you'd been there longer. I didn't agree, but I didn't argue. I wasn't going to dump my bitterness on the one person in that whole mess who seemed to have a conscience. Ryan didn't message me again after I walked away from the house. Neither did my parents. They were waiting, hoping. I could feel it. They thought I was still turning it over in my head, maybe softening, maybe getting nostalgic about family. Instead, I was sharpening the knife. That weekend, I texted my mom out of nowhere. Are you still delaying the honeymoon? She answered within 2 minutes. Yes, haven't booked anything. We're just seeing how things play out. I followed up. So, you're still waiting to see if I'll help. Another pause this time. Then, we're hoping yes. But it's your decision. We're not pressuring you, right? Just the usual guilt-wrenched optimism. The kind that says you're hurting the family, but we won't say it out loud because we still want the money. I let a full day pass. Then I send another message. I talk to a financial advisor. If I do anything, it'll have to be a formal contract with signatures, interest, and a clause that you can't talk to me about the money again. Unless it's in writing. No response for hours. Then my dad texted me directly, "Are you being serious right now?" I didn't reply. Later that night, my mom texted again, "Maybe we should all meet and discuss this calmly." I sent a thumbs up emoji. That was it. When we met the next day, they tried to keep things friendly. My mom made coffee. My dad had a printed list of alternate ideas, including one where I give a portion of the money now and the rest after they repair the trust. Ryan wasn't there. I asked why. My mom said he doesn't want to be part of this anymore. He's stressed enough. I smiled and said, "That's fair. I'm stressed too. So let's just wrap this up." My dad handed me the printed page like it was a peace treaty. I scanned it, then folded it in half and slid it back across the table. "I've made my decision." I said, "You'll need to figure it out without me. Borrow the money. Earn it. Do what you need to do. Just don't ask me again." My mom's mouth opened, but nothing came out. My dad just sat back, like he'd been punched. That moment, when the hope drained out of their faces, completely, I'll never forget it. The next morning, I woke up to 0 messages. Not a single call. They went silent. I wasn't surprised. Later that week, Ryan's fiancée texted me again. "They told me you shut everything down. I just want you to know I still think you were right." I stared at that message for a while, then replied, "You're the only one who gets it." And she said, "Maybe I'm just not used to this kind of family yet." That one made me laugh. At least someone finally said it out loud. The silence wasn't peace. It was punishment. A week went by, then 2. No texts, no calls, nothing from my parents, and nothing from Ryan. Not even the usual passive-aggressive attempts to reel me back in. They didn't say they were cutting me off, but they didn't have to. It was clear. They thought I'd gone too far, because I stopped being the one who swallowed her pride, because I stopped being the family doormat, with a polite smile, because I said no, and they couldn't handle that. The family group chat went completely dead. A few distant cousins posted something about summer plans. No one replied. Usually, my mom would at least drop a heart emoji or a cheery. Sounds fun. But this time, silence. My dad ignored a simple work-related email I sent, pretending it must have slipped through. My birthday was coming up in a couple of weeks. I already knew what would happen. Nothing. They weren't angry that I walked away. They were angry that I did it with dignity. The funny thing is, they thought I'd be stewing in regret, that I'd eventually come back crawling, apologizing for how I reacted. But I wasn't. I missed the version of family I thought I had, not the one that actually existed. Then, out of nowhere, a message from Ryan's fiancée popped up. "Hey, just wanted to check in. I know it's been quiet. I just hope you're doing okay." I told her that I appreciated her saying something, because no one else had. She responded, "It's been tense. They don't really talk about it, but I know they're all still hoping you'll come around." I typed a reply, deleted it, then typed again. They'll need to get used to the idea that I won't. She didn't try to change my mind. She didn't tell me to forgive them or move on. She just said, "I really hope you're still around for the next chapter, because you matter, even if they don't act like it." I sat there for a while, holding my phone, not knowing how to answer that. It wasn't much, but it was honest, and it was the only kindness anyone from that side of the family had shown me since the wedding. A few days later, I got a bank notification, a small transfer from my dad's account into mine. $40. No note, no context. That's how he wanted to reopen communication. I declined it. That same day, I canceled the birthday dinner reservation I'd made weeks ago, the one I'd been holding on to, just in case they pulled their heads out of the sand. It was supposed to be at this small restaurant I liked. Nothing fancy, just quiet and good. Instead, I ordered takeout and ate alone on my porch with a beer. Peaceful, simple, no paper badges. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like something was missing. They thought they'd frozen me out. What they didn't realize was I'd already left. The update had been a little over a month, long enough for the silence to settle in like mold. Slow, quiet, and unmistakably permanent. I stopped expecting texts. I stopped checking the family group chat. I didn't even get the usual chain emails my mom forwarded once a week without reading. Ryan had disappeared completely, not a word. Since I turned him down, I figured he was done with me, or more likely, he'd chosen not to deal with the mess, because facing it meant admitting he played a part. I'd moved on mostly, at least on the surface. I was back to work, eating better, sleeping okay. I even started looking into a trip I'd been putting off for years. Somewhere far, somewhere they couldn't reach. Then one random Thursday night, everything cracked open again. I was half asleep on the couch, something mindless playing on the TV, when I saw a notification from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but the first line made me sit up. Hey, I hope this isn't too weird, but I really need to tell you something. It's about the wedding and your brother. I wasn't sure if I should reach out, but I feel like you deserve to know. I blinked. The number had no name attached, just a local area code. I kept reading. This is Carrara's cousin. I helped organize parts of the wedding, seating, RSVP stuff, all of it. I saw the original guest list. You were listed as family, full access, seated at the same table as your parents and Ryan. Another message followed seconds later. 3 days before the wedding, your mom changed it. She emailed a revised list. You were the only name that was moved. Ryan approved it. I remember thinking it felt weird, but figured it was a family thing. I didn't move, just sat there staring at my phone, heart pounding in this slow, heavy way. Not shocked, not exactly, just exposed, like someone had finally turned the lights on in a room I'd been stumbling around in for years. Then one more message. I'm not trying to stir drama. I just couldn't sit on it anymore. What they did wasn't okay. I'm really sorry. I stared at the screen. They knew. Ryan, my own brother, had seen me on that original list and let them bump me down to the limited access category, like I was some second cousin nobody talks to. This wasn't some mistake. It wasn't a vendor issue or a capacity limit. It was deliberate, precise, pre-approved, and they did it knowing exactly what I was bringing to the table. Literally, they knew about the check. I told Ryan weeks earlier I had something big planned for the wedding. I wanted it to be a surprise, something that took pressure off his back, something meaningful. He was the one who told me how tight their budget was. I offered to help, and he let me. Then 3 days before the wedding, he signed off on cutting me out. I sat there and scrolled back through our old messages, back to the night he called and said, Mel, I don't know how we're going to afford the honeymoon. Back to me saying, I've got you, don't worry. He knew, and he did it anyway. They wanted the money, but not the connection. They didn't want me in the pictures, in the speeches, at the table. They just wanted the envelope. And that's when it stopped hurting. That's when it shifted, because now I knew exactly who they were, and I had proof. No more wondering. No more second chances. I didn't respond to the cousin. I didn't need to. She had already given me the one thing my family never did: the truth. The next morning, I woke up calm. There was no emotional spiral, no urge to scream or cry, just a quiet, steady acceptance. They chose this. My mom chose to exclude me. My dad chose to support her. And Ryan, he chose to let it happen. So, I started cleaning house. I deleted the family group chat. Left without a word. I blocked my parents on every social platform. I muted Ryan's number. Not blocked. Not yet. Just silenced. I wasn't punishing them. I was removing myself from the space where they'd built a version of me that only existed for their benefit. Later that day, I got another text from Ryan's fiancée. "I don't know what happened," she said, "but Ryan's been quiet all morning. I think he's realizing things." I didn't respond. Let him sit in it. Let him piece it together on his own, because I wasn't going to carry that weight anymore. 2 days later, my dad tried again. He sent a message that read, "Family is complicated. We all make mistakes. We love you." I stared at it. No apology, just a vague lifeline wrapped in excuses. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the file on my computer labeled loan terms and deleted it. They weren't getting the money. They weren't getting anything. For the next week, the silence continued. Then, on a random Tuesday evening, Ryan's name popped up on my phone again. This time, he called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Mel, I really need to talk to you. Please, just give me 5 minutes." I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. I didn't delete the message, but I didn't return the call either. I listened to it once, then set my phone down and took a walk. No music, no distractions, just the sound of my own footsteps and the quiet breeze. It was the most peaceful I'd felt in months. The next day, another message came in, this time from my mom. "Ryan's not doing well. He misses you." It was short, direct, and completely tone-deaf. I didn't know what she expected me to say. "Oh no, poor Ryan. The same Ryan who let you humiliate me." I left it on read. That evening, I started looking at plane tickets. Somewhere far, somewhere quiet, somewhere that didn't carry the weight of family obligation. A beach town, a quiet cabin, a solo trip. I didn't know yet, but I was going because I had spent too long twisting myself into someone they might accept. Someone who keeps giving, hoping for crumbs of affection in return. And I was done. The day before my birthday, a letter arrived in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. It was from my mom. The handwriting was careful, too careful, like every word had been rewritten in her head a dozen times before landing on the page. She said she missed me, that family wasn't the same without me, that mistakes were made, and maybe things got out of hand, that they never meant to hurt me like that. But still, no apology, no ownership, just a gentle rewrite of the story. A version where they were loving but overwhelmed, where I was sensitive but strong, where everything could be chalked up to misunderstanding. I folded the letter once, then twice, then tucked it back in the envelope and placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk. Let it sit there. Let it age into irrelevance. That night, I lit a candle on a slice of cake I bought for myself and whispered one word before blowing it out. Freedom, not forgiveness, not closure, just freedom. Because the truth is, I didn't need them to be different anymore. I didn't need them to change. I just needed space to stop pretending that they ever would. The next morning on my actual birthday, I woke up to no calls, no texts, no fake cheer. It was exactly what I needed. I made pancakes. I played music. I danced barefoot in my kitchen like nobody had ever handed me a paper badge that said I didn't belong. Because I did belong. Just not there. Not with them. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized they didn't lose a daughter. They lost access to my generosity, to my support, to my loyalty. I still had all those things. I just wasn't giving them to people who treated me like an afterthought. 2 days after my birthday, I got another message from Ryan's fiancée. Hey, just checking in again. I hope you had a good birthday. I know this isn't my place, but I just wanted to say I'm still really sorry. I replied, thank you. That means a lot. She responded, they still haven't really talked about it. Not directly, but I can tell it's eating at Ryan. I just don't think he knows what to do. I didn't reply right away. I sat with it because here's the thing. I believed her. I believed that Ryan was probably sitting there stewing, turning it over in his head, playing both sides of the story on a loop. But I also knew something else. He could have said something at any point, at the wedding, at the house, in any of the weeks since. And he hadn't. Instead, he'd waited, watched, measured his moves, hoping I'd be the one to crack first. But not this time. That weekend, I finally booked the trip. 3 days in a coastal town I'd never been to. I packed light, just to carry on, a journal, and the kind of clothes you wear when you're walking towards something better. I didn't tell anyone. I turned off my phone when I arrived. No social media, no emails, just the sound of ocean waves, the smell of salt, and the quiet that comes from finally truly being alone. But not lonely. I watched the sunrise every morning. I wrote pages and pages in my journal, not about them, but about me, about who I used to be, and who I was becoming, about how for so long I'd measured my worth in their approval, and how little that was worth in the end. On the last night of the trip, I walked along the beach barefoot and let the tide chase me. I laughed out loud, and no one was there to judge it, or quiet it, or pretend they didn't hear it. I felt light. I felt like myself again. When I got home, the silence was still there. The group chat was still dead. No messages, no calls. But this time, it felt like a choice I had made, not a punishment I had to endure. That same afternoon, I found another envelope in my mailbox. This one from Ryan. It wasn't handwritten, just a folded note and a printed photo. The note said, I messed up. I know I did. I didn't stop it when I should have. I was scared of making things worse, and instead I let them get worse. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know. I'm sorry. The photo was from our childhood, a summer barbecue in the backyard. We were maybe 8 and 10. I had ice cream on my face. He was laughing, reaching out to clean it off with his sleeve. We both looked happy, whole, before all the complications, before they learned how to make me feel small. I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I put it back in the envelope and slid it into the drawer with my mom's letter. I didn't rip it up. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't call him either, because healing doesn't always mean reopening the door. Sometimes it just means locking it gently and walking away without slamming it. That night, I got one more text from Ryan's fiancée. I hope someday this changes, but if it doesn't, I still think you did the right thing. I've learned more from watching you walk away than I ever did from watching them pretend. I replied, thank you. That means everything. And it did. Because sometimes the people who understand you best aren't the ones you grew up with. Sometimes they're the ones who show up quietly, consistently, and without obligation. People like her, people who say, I see you, and mean it. A few days later, I reopened my calendar and started filling it in again. Dinner with friends, a yoga class, a gallery opening, a hike. Not one single event involving family, and it felt good. They'd spent years teaching me how to disappear inside myself, how to accept scraps, how to perform my worth in exchange for shallow praise. But I wasn't doing that anymore. I wasn't waiting for an invitation. I wasn't waiting for a call. I wasn't waiting for the apology. That would never come in the form I deserved. Instead, I was building something else, something better, a life that didn't orbit around anyone else's comfort or expectations. One morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and scrolled through old photos, birthday parties, holidays, awkward group shots with forced smiles. I deleted most of them, but I kept a few, not because I missed the moments, but because I needed to remember how far I'd come. Because the girl in those photos, she was trying so hard, so painfully hard, to be loved, to be chosen, to be enough. And now she was finally free. It had been a little over 2 months since the wedding, 2 months since I stood in front of a gift table and decided I wasn't going to let them take from me anymore. 2 months since I stopped bending myself into their shape and started choosing mine instead. And still nothing from my parents. They were stubborn. I give them that. The kind of people who believed silence was strategy, that if they waited long enough, I'd come back out of guilt, or loneliness, or nostalgia. But I wasn't lonely. Not really, because the quiet they left behind had been filled with peace, with real friends, with people who saw me, with the kind of laughter that wasn't measured in obligation or role-playing, but joy. And one night in the middle of that stillness, I got another message. It was short, from Ryan. Hey, I don't expect anything. I just wanted to say I miss you. I stared at it for a long time. Then I set my phone down. I didn't need to reply. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because I didn't owe anyone the version of myself that let them hurt me quietly just to keep the peace. They'd built a system that worked. As long as I played the role, as long as I showed up, smiled, handed over the check, sat at the edge of the table, and pretended I wasn't hungry. But the second I asked for a plate, the second I said no, I matter too, the system collapsed. And that collapse wasn't mine to fix. So instead of writing back, I opened my journal and wrote down the thing I'd been circling for weeks, but hadn't had the courage to say out loud. You don't get to cut someone out and still collect their love. That was the lesson, not just for them, but for me, because for too long, I treated my love like a default, like something people were entitled to just because we shared blood, or childhoods, or last names. But love, real love, is active, it's mutual, it's earned and kept and protected, and I was done giving it to people who thought it was just a background convenience. The next morning, I opened a new document on my laptop. I typed a title at the top, What I Will and Won't Accept from Family. It was long, it was personal, it was honest. It started with, I will not accept exclusion masked as tradition, and I will not accept shame dressed up as care. It ended with, I will protect my peace like it's gold because it is, and anyone who wants to be in my life has to treat it like treasure, not a tool. When I finished, I printed it, folded it, taped it to the inside of my closet door, not to remind them, to remind me, because they might never change. But I already had, and the best part, I didn't need a paper badge to prove it. I had my own seat now, at a table I built, where I serve my own joy, in portions big enough for me to finally feel full. And when I raised my glass, it's not to family who failed me. It's to the girl who finally said enough, and meant it, to Melissa, to me, to freedom.